Welcome to the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. Welcome to round 3 of the BULERS Sim Gear GT3 Premier League. And this is a circuit that is surely going to be a dramatic one for our drivers. The infamous first corner awaits, but only after 20 minutes of qualifying, which is just beginning now. Cars rolling in the pit lane, heading out on their outlaps as we speak. The historic Monza circuit is going to be a very exciting race, I'm sure, for our extremely talented drivers in this series. There you see an overview of the circuit, characterized by those long straights, deep braking zones, lots of overtaking opportunities, but also lots of opportunity for things to go wrong. We're expecting this race to stay dry, but it could still be treacherous out there over the course of the race distance. Qualifying session underway at the moment. As we said, it'll be a few minutes before we see the lap time start to pour in here. Of course, the Monza circuit situated just outside of Milan in a national park setting, surrounded by trees. The engines reverberate around this circuit. And then, of course, you drive under the historic banking on this lap as well. It is a wonderful circuit. We have the two variantes, the two chicanes at the start of the lap, of course. You've got the Lesmo corners, which are always tricky. It's very easy to go wide out of the second Lesmo, find yourself on the gravel and losing time. The Variante Ascari, another one where you can quite easily get it wrong, just brake a little bit too deep into the corner and get your line wrong, lose half a second without even really realizing it. The drivers are out there on the circuit then at the moment. Let's talk you through the championship at this stage. It is Vladislav Shopov who left Road America as our championship leader. 282 points to his name, the Impulse Racing machine. JRS vertical grips. Georgi Rachev second in the standings at the moment. Just 6 points back though, so he has certainly got the opportunity to maybe overhaul his competition. Viktor Varbanov and Philip Koenig make up the top 4 in the championship. Of course, Varbanov also with JRS vertical grip, but I'm told that he hasn't had much opportunity to go testing over the course of the last few days on the sim. He's been kart racing this weekend, so he's been busy elsewhere. And I think he might have even been scouting for braking points a few moments ago before going out into the qualifying session. So Viktor Varbanov's preparation has been limited, but the impressive driver will surely still be a factor towards the front of the order. And we know, based on talking to him, of course, after Portimao, the season opener, how much preparation goes into a weekend for Philip Koenig. The German sim racing team driver will be looking to move his way up the standings once again. A difficult weekend overall for him in Road America. In the AM class, it is Lazar Kaczarski for the team Supersport that leads in the AM Championship, just ahead of off-track racing's Milen Milchev, who we saw leading that tandem of BMWs a few moments ago. So very, very interesting to see how the things unfold in the two championships. In the AM Championship, it is exceedingly close. 4 points covering Kaczarski in the lead. Milchev 2 points further back. And then Rade Vodenicherov just another 2 points back as well. So 4 points in total covering the top 3 in AM. That is a very close battle. And based on how all 3 drivers have performed so far, you really wouldn't want to guess either way who's going to come out on top this time around. We haven't got a guest entry from Rover Racing this weekend. This is the 145 car. So we do have new entries. Again, this is Daniel Isov in the Super Sport entry. So he's wearing some World Challenge colours, as you can see on his car. Great to have another BMW in the mix. It looks like the Porsches again are strong here at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, but we could well see a change in the hierarchy this weekend. If someone has a strong weekend, if someone is suited to this circuit in these early stages of the season, it could certainly shift things significantly. There is the 26 car. That is Serafimov at the wheel of one of the Lamborghinis. The Lamborghini has looked like the other very, very strong car with the current balance of performance. It looks like the closest thing to the Porsche. In fact, at times at Road America, it did look a little bit stronger. But we'll see whether or not that translates again here to the Monza circuit. We are through the first of the chicanes at the moment. Such a difficult traction zone as well. Of course, you've got to be careful to take curb so you're not too slow, but not too much curb so you don't go firing off the Curva Grande. Not much of a corner with the chicane preceding it, of course. But you'll see drivers no doubt going too wide through there, especially in the early stages, and they've got to get their braking right for the Variante della Roggia that they're going through now. Short, sharp blast down towards the Lesmos, of course. Lesmo 1 and 2. The first corner, you can put the power down surprisingly early through this one, but you can also be tricked into getting it wrong. And that barrier on the inside has captured many a driver over the years. Lesmo 2. Do you see there? SimGear promo code PITLANE for 5% off from simgear.bg. That could be well worth looking into if you're looking to build up your rig at the moment. There is the Variante Ascari, the next corner. We've already gone under the historic banked oval at this point, bouncing over the curbs there at the Variante Ascari. And then it's the long run down to the Curva Parabolica. The final corner on the lap, of course, opens up into a flat-out run down the main straight. You're going to see lots of exciting overtaking and action, I think, around this circuit this weekend. It feels like a track that's going to be well-suited to the style of racing we've seen in the first few events, the first pair of events in this championship. Great to see some familiar names out there on circuit once again. We didn't have Stefan Bastangiev last week, but I note that he is there and leading AM at the moment, 8th fastest on the timing screen right now. Bastangiev then making his second appearance of the season, and one of many drivers here with real world and sim racing commitments, and great to see him in amongst it once again. As he said after Portimao, I'm an AM driver because I just can't put in the same hours as some of these guys. But he is very quick nonetheless. It's Vladislav Shopov who has the fastest lap time out there at the moment, a 1:47.266 for the Porsche racer. The Shopov that we see on screen at the moment turns into the second Lesmo. Just behind him is Philip Koenig. Koenig currently 4th fastest out there on the circuit. We can always expect him to be quick, and he's got a good toe here as well on this lap as well. I wonder if that's going to help him out. Of course, the toe all important here. Usually you don't want traffic on a qualifying lap, but I think on the balance of it, the pull of a car braking the air ahead of you is actually more helpful than a hindrance around this circuit. There's the 22. We were briefly looking at, there's Varbanov in the Lamborghini Huracan. We ride on board with him as he approaches the Variante Ascari. And you've got to be brave on those curbs. So easy to get it wrong, especially there, the last of the curbs at the Ascari. Of course, you get lifted up, left side tyres break contact with the ground, and if you land wrong, you can end up in a spin quite easily. There are a lot of pitfalls around this circuit. It's one that feels easy, but once you're trying to push, once you're trying to find the limits, it's quite easy to step over it and go wrong from there. Connor Brown is on a good time as well. Currently his fastest lap time, a 1:47.479 in the 22 Ferrari. So he's second fastest, of course, an Impulse Racing teammate, a teammate to Vladislav Shopov. but running a different car, running the Ferrari versus the Porsche. Talking to some of the AM runners using the Ferrari last week, they were pretty happy to see Connor Brown not only up there, but up there and using the Ferrari, proving that the car is capable of taking the fight to the Porsches and the Lamborghinis. There's the BMW, the 120 car. This is Alexander Nikolov Jr. I note that Alexander Nikolov is also racing. That's Jekov Rally Team's Alexander Nikolov. I don't know if that's Nikolov Sr. It may well be. We might have a multi-generational situation going on. Bouncing across the curbs goes the 120 car. Here is your current pace setter, Vladislav Shopov, almost 12 minutes into this qualifying session then. And here's Porsche from Ferrari, from Lamborghini at the front of the order. And this is the representative of Stuttgart. This is the Porsche driver, Vladislav Shopov. Now, where does Philipp Koenig's lap time come in as well? I'm keeping an eye on the car that has been in the wheel tracks of the number 2. Shopov crosses the line and improves to a 1:47.136. Koenig's time still only good enough for 4th position, a 1:47.653. So it has half a second to find up against Vladislav Shopov right now. Georgi Ratchev, second in the championship. He sits 5th at the moment on your timing screen, as you can see on the left side of screen. Chris Vasilyov is 6th fastest right now, ahead of Daniel Markov. The first of the AM runners is Stefan Bastangiev. It's Anton Stratiev and Julian Janowski rounding out your overall top 10 at the moment. And Konstantin Kirchev is the 12th fastest driver out there. He is the second place driver among the AMs, the first of the Red Zone Racing Mercedes AMG GT3 Evos out there on the circuit. Of course, this circuit, the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, was the first of the facilities to host a Blancpain Endurance Series race all the way back in 2011. The first iteration of what is now the GT World Challenge Endurance Cup. It's a circuit that has a lot of GT3 racing history, a lot of GT racing and sports car racing history at large, of course. The Porsche versus Ferrari battles here in the late 60s into the early 70s, with the Ford GT40s, of course, also getting involved in it in the late 60s as well. The famous JW Automotive Gulf liveried cars among them. Shopov with a fastest middle sector, but not quite quick enough. All of 0.03 of a second off of his own personal best that time by. Here is the 102 car then. Milen Milchev, who is right up there in the championship at AM, second in the championship at the moment, and the off-track racing team have looked strong so far in the AM category. Of course, a 1-2 in the second race at Road America for off-track racing. Into the pit lane comes the 37 Audi. That was Ivanov heading into pit lane now. Just looking further down the order on my timing screen. Have we got anyone who is yet to set a quick lap time out there? I do note that we are only seeing one Audi out there on the circuit. It does appear that we aren't seeing Vasil Zhekov himself this weekend. He's not there on the timing screens, so Zhekov seems to be giving this one a miss, but he'll be represented, of course, by the various JRS or Zhekov Rally School entries out there on the circuit. The Porsche's getting leery ahead of the 26 car. Stefan Bastangiev racing for our 23 esports this weekend. Always one to watch. Of course, got tagged into a spin at the start of race 2 in the Portimao season opening event, and that cost him some time, certainly. A reminder, of course, of the format. If you're tuning in for the first time, just over 4 minutes of this qualifying session left to run. Your first race will be 20 minutes in length. the results of that race will determine the grid for race 2, but with the top 10 reversed going into the 40-minute feature race, where we can expect pit stops, of course, over the course of that 40 minutes. And there's also, of course, prize money on the line in this series as well. That will be something at the forefront of the mind for some of these teams. A lot of these drivers do this primarily, of course, for the fun of the competition, but some of them are laser focused on the prize money aspect of it as well. Several €100 worth of prize pot on the line. Here is the 28 car. That is Serafimov further back. There is Boyko Shopov goes 12th fastest. We just see Vodnicherov come into the pit lane. Still nobody is anywhere near Vladislav Shopov's lap time, though. He's almost 3/10 quicker. In fact, he's over 3/10 quicker than his closest competition, Brown, in the Ferrari. So Porsche driver on top at the moment, but the next best Porsche is almost half a second slower. So clearly, Vladislav Shopov has found something here. Here's your 6th fastest driver at this stage, Chris Vasilyov, coming around the final corner. Latches onto the rear of the 37 Audi. Still not seeing much improvement up and down the timing screens at the moment. Will anybody be able to challenge that lap time from Vladislav Shopov? And similarly, will we only have one AM car in the overall top 10? Stefan Bastangiev, the only car from the AM category in the top 10 right now. We ride on board, or we watch along, I should say, with Viktor Varbanov. Varbanov just being pursued there, I think, by Georgi Ratchev as well. So the number 1 and the number 3 running in tandem. They bounce across the curbs. Lots of commitment there through the Variante Ascari. You saw how close they were running to the gravel trap there. Let's see if either JRS vertical grip Lamborghini can move forward then. Out of the final corner we go. And both cars into the pit lane. That looked like a pretty solid last few corners for the two Lamborghinis, but they decided not to complete the lap. We got a spinner further back. That's Koenig. Philip Koenig in a spin. Trying to find those fine margins, bouncing across the sausage curbs here at the Variante della Roggia, and that did not pay off. The sun has come out over the course of this session as well, so the temperature's going up out there on circuit. Shopov, Brown, Varbanov, Koenig, Ratchev and Vasilyov have effectively been locked in those top 6 positions for the last several laps. It doesn't look like anyone has the raw pace to challenge right now. Connor Brown with a personal best in the final sector, or the most recent sector, but he comes in as well. Koenig was purple through the first part of the lap. He will be very disappointed to have lost out there. Perhaps Koenig had a little bit more in the back pocket, but we'll never know now. 20 minutes of qualifying has now elapsed, and it will be Vladislav Shopov who sits on the pole position for this race. Connor Brown is alongside Viktor Varbanov and Philip Koenig on row 2. Georgi Ratchev and Chris Vasilyov will line up then on row 3 of the grid. Stefan Bastangiev and Daniel Markov on row 4. Then it's Stratiev and Janovsky on row 5. Ratchinov and Shopov on row 6 of the grid. Row 7, Kirchev and Thomas Marks Burgess on row 7. Velikov and Yankov on row number 8. The third of your AM runners behind Kirchev and Bastangiev is Vladislav Stefanov. He starts 17th alongside Joris Ums. Alexander Nikolov in 19th place. He's alongside Yordanin Svetanov. Alexander Nikolov Jr. 21st fastest alongside Pavel Ivanov. Row 12 of the grid, Bozidar Andreev and Milen Milchev. Martin MJ Sampson lining up 25th place alongside his Automex Psycho Radio's colleague Roy Vivek. Daniel Isov in 27th. Ivo Saravimov in 28th. Kochev and Mavrodiev in 29th and 30th. Ivanov lining up 31st. Am-class leader, points leader, Lazar Kaczarski, only 32nd fastest. Plamen Dimitrov in 33rd. Skelton, 34th. Ivelo in 35th place. Vodenicherov in 36th. Palauzov, Stanchev, and Georgi Atanasov set to line up at the very back of the grid. Atanasov, who'd expect to be quite quick, he will be starting from the rear. I don't think he got a time in during that qualifying session. There are the cars then, stationed beneath the historic banking here at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. And one would assume that they will be rolling in just a few short moments. Safety car will lead them away. So Vladislav Shopov and Connor Brown have locked out that front row of the grid for Impulse Racing. Porsche and Ferrari on the front row of the grid. Lamborghini and Porsche on row 2. Lamborghini and Porsche again on rows 3 and 4. It's still the Raging Bulls and the rear-engine Porkers that are at the sharp end. We do have that interloper in the form of the Ferrari. We've got some Mercedes hardware just outside the top 10 as well. BMW's maybe not looking as strong as I was anticipating personally. But let's see how it all unfolds then into this 20-minute race. This will be a sprint. This will be a dash around the national park here at Monza. And of course, everyone may be bracing just a little bit in the back of their minds, knowing what comes next is the very treacherous, often challenging and chaotic first chicane at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. Safety car peels in then. We're getting half a formation lap. And in just a few moments, round 3 of the Sim Gear GT3 Premier League will begin. The lights are on and we are underway. Looks like a good start there from Vladislav Shopov on the inside of the front row. Connor Brown will be hoping that nobody outbrakes behind him. We've got one off before they even get to the first corner. Everybody else trying to find some room, trying to stay tidy as they can. A few cars stopping on the inside of the first corner. But it does seem as though... Oh, well, we got a couple of cars having a moment further back in the field. One of the Porsches, one of the Lamborghinis there at the very back. Roman Skelton and Dimitar Palauzov seemingly have had a drama, but no such issues towards the front of the order at least. Vladislav Shopov is the leader. There goes the field bouncing aggressively over those sausage curves. Oh, the number 7 car in a spin. That was Martin Yankov, and he got collected, I think, by at least 1 or 2 others there. So a bit of drama through the opening chicanes. Koenig there under pressure from Daniel Markov, who's on his inside line as they go through the second Lesmo. They've just about found room for each other. That's not normally a section of circuit that you can pull off too wide, but they found a way, and Chris Vasilyov is getting involved in this as well. Vasilyov in the negative delta by Madness entry, swapping positions with Daniel Markov as they head down towards Variante Ascari. Killick Koenig manages to get away with all of that and ends up with a couple of car lengths clear of the rest of the field. That battle further down in the order, that is for 6th position. The top 5 have broken away rather more than that as well. You can see the gap of something like 2 seconds between Koenig and Connor Brown, who's in 5th place. Connor Brown has lost out there not only to Viktor Varbanov, who now sits 2nd, but also to Ratchev and Stefan Bastangiev. The AM leader is right up there in 4th place. Bastangiev using that racecraft, using that real life knowledge of Lamborghini GT cars and GT racing in general to have a very positive first lap of the race. Into the first corner then for the second time in this 20-minute race. And the 14 car there going a bit deep and then almost ending up in the side of the number 10. That's Vasilyov going wheel to wheel actually with Boyko Shopov. Vasilyov there just demonstrating if you go a little bit deep into the first turn, the first element of the first variante, it can be a bit of a problem. Variante Alta. Through Della Roggia they go, bouncing across once again. Full commitment required. Of course, quite easy to get it wrong. We saw another car facing the wrong way there, further back in the field. I think that might have been Stefanov in the Mercedes who had a moment there. We get a replay of it now. And, yeah, actually not quite enough curb, I think. Tried to delay his apex there. Rode up on the curb at the wrong moment as he was putting the power down. And the car just got spat out from underneath him. Fine margins. And Stefanov now has to work from 36th position. So that's definitely not gone to plan for him. One car off at the back of the Variante Ascari there. Didn't quite see who that was, but there's a stack up going on at the exit of Ascari. Alexander Nikolov is dropping positions. I think a few others getting caught up in that as well. We have a look at the 104 Ferrari. Yeah, just getting tagged by the BMW there, and everyone else having to try and take evasive action. Georgi Atanasov, of course, was one of them picking through the wreckage there, starting from the rear of the field and slowly working his way through. Here is Anton Stratiev in 8th position. Daniel Markov leading this queue of cars in 6th place. Then behind him it's Varbanov. Then it's Stratiev in 8th place. Markov will be hoping that... actually, I was going to say he would be hoping that Varbanov would work with him, but actually Markov there seemingly just let Varbanov through. I'm quite surprised to see that. Connor Brown then following Philip Koenig, or just ahead of Philip Koenig, and following Stefan Bastangiev. Bastangiev all the way up there in 3rd position right now. Varbanov down to 6th place, of course. That's quite a surprise. I think Varbanov might have had a moment that we didn't see, because he was right there with Georgi Ratchev at the start of the race. So Varbanov has had an issue, seemingly. Thomas Marks Burgess in 11th position. He started a little way further down the pack, so I think he's made up a few places there. Indeed, he's made up 3 positions. He's just behind Julian Janowski and gets a good run there out of the Variante Ascari. Full commitment without going over the edge. Connor Brown similarly pressuring Bastangiev. Let's see how the Ferrari then stacks up to the Lamborghini at the end of these straights, because last week at Road America it looked like the Lamborghini had a bit more straight line speed at the top end than the Porsche. Where does the Ferrari stack up? They're about even Stevens as they come across the line, but does the Ferrari have a bit more juice? Maybe a kilometre of an hour or so extra. They lean on each other a little bit under braking, and Brown gets through into 3rd position. That was very nicely done by the Impulse Racing driver. Oh, and we've had an issue further back. I think that was Boyko Shopov, maybe Daniel Markov involved in that. Yes, Daniel Markov in a spin at the back of shot. We'll get a look. Just seeing Michal Velikov going past there. Daniel Markov was indeed involved in that, and I think it was Anton Stratiev, the other party. And the dent in the rear of that car tells the story, rather, doesn't it? Yes, and so does that. The rear ending there from the 18 car, Anton Stratiev into the rear of Daniel Markov. So easily done at that first chicane. Stefan Bastangiev facing increasing pressure from Philip Koenig, we saw there. Ivo Serafimov, meanwhile, in the Porsche, just pursuing Nikolov at the moment. This is for 20th position. Here's Philip Koenig. Bastangiev starting to lose out to some of these quick drivers in the pro cars as the race comes towards them. Brown has already gotten through. Koenig on the outside then at Parabolica. Hard to do here. Don't think there's a sausage curb modelled on the outside, so that's not going to spit you out. But that AstroTurf on the exit of the corner could do so if you end up running on that. Koenig then still getting a tow from the Ferrari up ahead. Is that going to be enough to put him ahead of the Lamborghini? The Lamborghini traditionally a little bit stronger towards the end of these long straights. And Bastangiev still side by side with Koenig. Great side-by-side racing, nicely driven by both parties. But Koenig makes his way up to 4th place in the German sim racing Porsche. Bastangiev had to yield there, and Varbanov closing in at a rate of knots. He gets around Bastangiev as well. I think Bastangiev may have just got a wheel outside of the curbs and onto the dirt there coming out of turn 2. And that has sent him down behind Viktor Varbanov, who, of course, is on that recovery drive, 5th at the moment and working his way up. So then, almost 10 minutes into the race, almost at half distance, it's Shopov who leads by the better part of 3 seconds right now over Georgi Ratchev. He's having about as good of a race as you could foresee. Connor Brown and Philip Koenig ahead of Viktor Varbanov. That's your top 5. Thomas Marks Burgess now up to 8th position as other parties have fallen around him. He's made up six positions already in this race, and he's right on the tail there of Chris Vasilyov, who seems to be the cork in the bottle here. It looks a bit Porsche Super Cup here. 4 Porsches in tandem as they run down the back straight towards Parabolica once again. A complete lap 5 of the race at the end of this lap, and it will be Thomas Marks Burgess, I think, making life very difficult for Vasilyov by the time they get to the next corner, although Vasilyov did get a good exit there out of the corner. Let's see how the identical cars close in on each other then in the straight. The Porsche behind should have a bit of a tow, and indeed just edging closer, ever so slightly closer is Burgess, but not a huge amount between them. You saw the flash of the headlights there from Burgess. Very, very close for comfort as they go through the chicane. The 4 Porsches. Then it's the 2 Mercedes there in 11th and 12th place. That's Michal Velikov, the pro entry, and then Konstantin Kirchev, the AM class runner. Second in AM at the moment is Konstantin Kirchev, and he'll be hoping to get a tow off of Velikov and maybe get involved with this Porsche scrap up ahead of them. Good to see some Mercedes up there at the sharp end, of course, in the second race. It is the reverse top 10, of course, in race 2 as well. So anyone who does get into the top 10 and stay around that 9th or 10th place area will be in the front row later on. You can see the damage on the number 7 car. We saw that one in a moment earlier on. Ivelo Dimitrov has got a new coat of paint on his car, I see. Last week, he seemed to be pushing Audis most of the time at Road America. This week, he's running just within the top 30. And you saw Martin Yankov just ahead of him. Yankov with damage on the front end of his car. So then, Vasilyov still leads Burgess, Janovsky and Shopov. Janovsky has moved up to 9th. Started the race in P10, and it is now the 10 car in 10th position. Shopov at the back of the queue. Looks like Marks Burgess has got a good run there out of the final corner. Philip Koenig, meanwhile, has moved up to 3rd place, slightly further up the road. Koenig has gotten past Connor Brown. It's side by side for 7th place, though, at the front of this queue of cars. The inside line belongs to Burgess. Will it be Burgess through? Yes, you can just see there through the Porsches. Oh, goodness me. A big clock there from Boyko Shopov to the rear of Chris Vasilyov. I doubt both cars are completely undamaged from that. I think there will have been a little bit of a dent on each car. And Boyko Shopov then remaining in 10th position. We get a replay here of Philip Koenig. He also got a very good run out of Parabolica, had the inside line into the first corner and got it done up against the Ferrari of Connor Brown. I have to imagine Connor Brown had a slightly compromised exit out of the Parabolica. Pavel Ivanov. We have a look at him through Variante Alta, and just tagged the 102 and got sent into a spin again. That BMW seems to be really planted, as if it's made out of concrete or something, because it's not the first time we've seen that BMW get kissed. Milen Milchev's car. He gets tagged, and it always seems to be the other car that ends up in a spin. Milchev here going wheel to wheel with the number 30 Porsche of Bozidar Andreev. And this time the collision didn't go Milen Milchev's way. And Samson followed through and made contact as well. Milchev losing out there. Bozidar Andreev, who's also further down than one may expect, started in 23rd place, now sits in 16th position, the Pro Class runner. We get a replay here of Pavel Ivanov seeming slow. Very strange, almost looks like a breakdown. I don't know if maybe something is wrong on his end in regard to the hardware, but Pavel Ivanov has left the race by the looks of it. So Ivanov with an issue. We are 13 minutes into this race then. Here you see the scrum just outside the top 20. Oh, goodness me again. Milchev getting his BMW dented slightly there. This is the battle for 20th place back. The leader of this queue of cars is Iordanin Svetanov in his Porsche. We see Georgi Tanasov here, who again we'd expect to be a little bit further up, but he's in 23rd position, having started at the rear of the pack. Being pursued at the moment there by Stanchev in the other of the off-track racing BMWs. The Jekov Rally Team entry of Rostislav Kochev, another driver in strife during this race. 34th position at the moment, and you can see the damage on the front end of that 992 GT3R Porsche as well. So several cars walking wounded. This was always going to be a danger at this circuit, of course. Martin Yankov with similar damage to the front end of his Porsche. Of course, they've gotten better for this characteristic over the years, but in the metal, these Porsches are often very susceptible to radiator damage if you collide front on. Here is the BMW of Stanchev getting past the number 20 Porsche. So Tanasov getting overtaken there by one of the AM front runners. Your AM leader continues to be Stefan Bastangiev in 6th position overall for Hour 23 Esports. He's the only AM runner in the top 10. In 13th place is Konstantin Kirchev. Just behind him is this battle that we see on screen for 14th place between Statiev and Ratchinov. Here's Michal Velikov right on the verge of the top 10 here. We have 4.5 minutes of this race left to go. And Velikov is on the cusp of the top 10, and more importantly, of course, on the cusp of pole position for the feature race that follows this 20-minute sprint, the 40-minute pit stop race. So Velikov in good position here, but can he turn it into a move for P10? Now Vorodiev stalking the battle between Kochev and the other Porsche, the 119 car of Radi Vodenicherov. Kochev there making it look fairly easy. Ratchinov up the inside here for 14th position. Makes the move stick there quite nicely into the Parabolica, but I think the other car is still there on his outside. Nope, manages to get through the corner quicker and moves up to P14. But let's see whether there's a retaliation here from Anton Stratiev. Stratiev was in the slipstream there. Meanwhile, Tomax Marks Burgess, having already made up several positions over this race distance, has now found himself behind Stefan Bastangiev, who, after initially breaking away at the front of the pack in the early stages of this race, is starting to fall into the clutches of some of the pro class drivers, but still putting in a great effort here in P6 overall. Thomas Marks Burgess following the Impulse Racing car. Rostislav Kochev, oh, got tagged there by Vodenicherov. That won't be looked at particularly fondly, I imagine. The Porsche even shorter. It's lost its front end, and now its rear end is dented in as well. Starting to look more of a Cayman than a 911, unfortunately, that machine. Thomas Marks Burgess then, who started this race in 14th. He's halved his position. He's gone from 14th to 7th. And he could yet get into the top half dozen as well. Michal Velikov still not close enough for a move to try and get into this top 10. Distinctive purple sim gear windscreen banner on that car, as you see on quite a few of the machines. And look at this, it is intra-team scrapping here. JRS Vertical Grip Porsche, followed by Red Zone Racing Mercedes, followed by Vertical Grip Porsche, followed by Red Zone Mercedes. Jordanin Svetanov now up to 19th position, but being harangued a little bit there by the big BMW of Daniel Isov. 28 car on the inside of him as well. That's Ivo Serafimov getting feisty here for 18th, 19th position, side by side. They cross the line to begin what should be the penultimate lap of the race, with 18 minutes and 40 seconds left in the book. Depending on just how far ahead the leader is, I think we should have one more lap as they come across the line next time. So 2 to go, effectively, I think, for these two fighting, or these three fighting. Some smoke there from someone further ahead who's maybe had a bit of a moment. But Svetanov losing out there to the 18th place driver, Ivo Serafimov. At the front of the order, it is Vladislav Shopov who leads the way from Georgi Rachev. The gap is out to 4.3 seconds. However, Philip Koenig has closed in on Georgi Rachev. I'm not sure Rachev is particularly clear in second place. Philip Koenig may make a last-minute bid for that second position. Here they are, running in tandem down the back straight. We are going to get one more lap of this race. Koenig to the inside, and Rachev just let him through. Georgi Rachev allowed Philip Koenig by. Now, is that a play for a better grid position, maybe? Thomas Marks Burgess still following in at the wheel track to Stefan Bastangiev in the battle for 6th position. Vladislav Shopov has crossed the line to begin the final lap of the race, so we do begin the final lap this time by lap 12 of the race. More shuffling going on at the front of the order. Viktor Varbanov has moved up to second place, and Philip Koenig has been demoted to 4th position. What happened to Koenig at the first chicane, I wonder? Daniel Markov has gotten past Kirchev as well for 11th position. So Kirchev's off aspirations of a top 10 and a pole position for race 2 are fading. But there's been a big jumble at the front end of the order that's now resolved itself again. Koenig is back up to second place again. And now Connor Brown is through into 3rd place. Varbanov 4th, Rachev 5th. That's your top 5 at the moment. We look at Viktor Varbanov going straight on. We look at both Lamborghinis there going straight on through the chicane. That was very peculiar. And then they allowed Philip Koenig back through. I wonder if they both caught each other out, maybe into the braking zone at turn 1. Thomas Marks Burgess following the two Lamborghinis. The two Lambos are definitely dropping. There's no way to avoid that conclusion. Varbanov has just been overtaken by Thomas Marks Burgess. The JRS Vertical Grip Lamborghinis are dropping. Vladislav Shopov then will come around the final corner to claim the sprint race win here in the SimGear GT3 Premier League. He weaves and bucks across the line, and Philip Koenig takes second place behind him ahead of Connor Brown. Bastangiev will take 4th position, and that's because Georgi Rachev and Viktor Varbanov have continued to drop through the order. In fact, across the line, Bastangiev 4th, Thomas Marks Burgess from 14th to 5th. Great drive from him Janovsky 6th, Vrasilyov in 7th place. Georgy Rachev dropped down to P8 and Viktor Varbanov dropped down to P10. Now, what happened there? Was this fuel map? Was this having to conserve fuel, or was this trying to be in a safer position for the start of the race? The further forward you are, of course, you're not going to be in the scrum going into the first corner. I'm not sure of the motive or the reason. So we see one post-checkered flag collision. But we did see those two Lamborghinis from JRS Vertical Grip drop down the pack. In fact, it will be JRS Vertical Grip 1, 2, 3 at the start of the race. Rachev, Shopov, Varbanov, the top three for the next race's grid then. That is very, very compelling. Across the line comes Vodenicherov further back in the field. 32nd place for him. Of course, the AM class win going the way of Stefan Bastangiev in 4th position. Konstantin Kirchev has to settle for 11th place, unfortunately. 2nd in AM for him. And not quite able to get a Mercedes onto the front row of the grid. A look then at the results of that race. Vladislav Shopov, your race winner, ahead of Philip Koenig and Connor Brown, your podium. Stefan Bastangiev in 4th place. Thomas Burgess in 5th. Janovsky in 6th place. Chris Vrasilyov in 7th position. Georgy Rachev dropping down the order, interestingly, at the end of that race, seemingly intentionally, be it to save fuel, be it to get a better position, I don't know. Boyko Shopov in 9th. Viktor Varbanov rounding out the top 10. He will be your pole sitter for the 40-minute pit stop race. Konstantin Kirchev, 2nd of the AM runners, in 11th position, ahead of Daniel Markov. Anton Stratiev, Rachinov in 14th place. Velikov in 15th, Andreev 16th, Sampson in 17th, and Svetanov in 18th position. 19th place going to Serafimov in P19, Isov in 20th place, Milen Milchev in 21st position. Quite high in the AM order once again, Milen Milchev. Stanchiev behind him, Ivanov in 23rd place, Nikolov in 24th, Martin Yankov only 25th ultimately, ahead of the Dimitrovs, and then Kaczarski in 28th position. 29th place going to Georgy Atanasov, 30th position for Alexander Nikolov. Some surprise names, I would say, a little bit further down the order as well. Mavrodiev in 31st, Vodenicherov only 32nd overall in that race. Vivek in 33rd, Kochev in 34th position, Palazov in 35th, Ooms, Stefanov, Ivanov and Skelton round out the 39 cars that took the start. Of course, not all reached the finish. Skelton with a collision on the first lap of the race that took him out of contention. So then, warm-up is ongoing around the circuit at the moment, and while that's going on, let's take a look at some messages from the partners of the BULERS Sim Gear GT3 Premier League before we bring you race number 2. Well then, that was a hugely dramatic first race. We now prepare for the 40-minute enduro. The pit stop race is coming up, and it's Season 7 champion Viktor Varbanov on pole position. Boyko Shopov alongside on the front row, and rounding out an all JRS vertical grip top three is Georgi Rachev. Vasilyov and Janovsky behind. Thomas Burgess rounding out row 3 of the grid. Stefan Bastangiev in 7th position, the first of the AMs, alongside Connor Brown. And it's Filip Koenig and Vladislav Shopov, your top two, of course, from the earlier race. Now starting from row 5, just ahead of Konstantin Kirchev and Daniel Markov. Row 7 of the grid is Stratiev and Rachinov. Row 8, Velikov and Andreev. Row 9, Samson and Svetanov, Serafimov and Isov rounding out the top 20. Then it's Milen Milchev and Stanchev in 21st and 22nd. Ivanov and Nikolov bringing you down to 24th place. Moving on to the next row, it is Yankov and Dimitrov. Then it's the other Dimitrov in 27th, and Kaczarski in 28th, Atanasov in 29th, Alexander Nikolov in 30th, Mavrodiev 31st, Vodenicherov 32nd, Vivek Kochev, Klausov and Ooms rounding us down to 36th place. Just 3 more drivers to cover: Stefanov, Ivanov and Skelton. Let's see if everybody can get through the first corner cleanly this time. Traditionally, the start of these pit stop races seem to be where everybody starts to throw caution to the wind and things get a little bit hairy. That's been the case at Road America. It was certainly the case at Portimao as well. Let's see how it goes at Monza. The cars are rolling then. The 40-minute feature race is about to get underway. Expect a pit stop somewhere maybe just after mid-distance in this one. The safety car pulls in. Viktor Varbanov then will be watching for the red lights, as will Boyko Shopov on the outside of the front row. The lights go out and we are racing for the second time tonight in the SimGear GT3 Premier League Season 8 Round 3. And let's see if everybody can get through turns 1 and 2 cleanly. A little bit of queuing and stacking up already towards the back, but it looks as though people are largely taking it easy, being careful. And yes, indeed, everybody gets towards the first chicane, gets through the first chicane without too much drama. Down then towards through Curva Grande, and the Variante della Roggia is next up, and it is Viktor Varbanov that leads from Shopov and Rachev. Oh, that was, I think, Stefan Bastangiev getting loose there. Bastangiev caught a big slide. We had one car shedding its bodywork as well, one of the Porsches towards the rear, or towards the mid of the pack, but Stefan Bastangiev has definitely had a moment there. He's dropped down as far as 11th place. He's only just the AM class leader, because behind him now is Konstantin Kirchev. Kirchev actually gets past, so Kirchev is the new AM class leader. He gets himself up into 11th place. A big scrum of cars goes beneath the historic banking. And there you see Bastangiev getting swallowed up here as they go through Ascari. Lots of rubbing in amongst the racing here further back in the field. I think it's Ivo Serafimov in the Porsche that has that front end damage that we saw on the tail end of the first lap. Varbanov from Shopov from Rachev is your top 3, but here comes Vasilyov around the outside of Georgi Rachev. Vasilyov with a nose ahead in the Porsche. 2 more Porsches behind Janovsky and Burgess, side by side as they cross the line again. And who will be in 3rd place by the time they get to turn 1? Inside line belongs to Georgi Rachev in the JRS vertical grip car, but that of course becomes the outside for the next corner. And sure enough, Rachev simply has to yield there. So then Viktor Varbanov and Boyko Shopov are 1st and 2nd place. And look at that, some leaning going on further back in the field. Oh, and that was the 8 car, sorry, Julian Janovsky, now facing sideways at Curva Grande. That is not the place to be. And I note that Milen Milchev among those dropping through the order further back in the pack. I wonder if anybody else maybe collected the stricken Porsche. Konstantin Kirchev has dropped through the order, and Georgi Ratchev loses it through the Lesmos. He ends up in the barrier. A lot has gone on there, both on screen and off screen. We've got a new AM class leader, Krastin Stanchev, and it has all shuffled around the midfield as well. Oh, and Ratchev rejoining and struggling, and he disappears away. I think Ratchev has decided enough is enough. Well, a lot has happened there over the course of that lap. We've got an entirely different perspective on the AM fight now. Stefan Bastangiev has also gone, so I think a few drivers deciding enough was enough there. A lot going on. Konstantin Kirchev, who was your AM class leader, now sits in 24th, and he's dropping again. Kirchev down to 30th position in the Mercedes. We get some replays further back of drivers trying to find track space through the first couple of turns. This was, of course, lap 1 of the race. And we get a replay here of Janowski. Koenig did well to avoid him from behind, as did Connor Brown in the Ferrari. But then the 8 car was really dead center of the circuit there. He didn't know what to do. And I think a few cars came a cropper trying to avoid the number 8, because there was a lot of shuffling all of a sudden in the midfield. And sure enough, the 8 car did get collected by quite a few, as you can see. And yeah, lots of chaos, lots of drama then on lap 2 of the race. And unsurprisingly, there have been some casualties in amongst them. The number 7 car getting tagged in a big way there. Martin Yankov in the way. That was Pavel Ivanov who went into the side of him. Then, of course, we saw Georgi Ratchev trying to rejoin, trying to get back onto the circuit. Spinning the car as he tried to get it back underway. And he decided enough was enough at that point, I think. Although I think that both Bastangiev and Ratchev might be rolling again. Nonetheless, we take stock of the race then. The top 2 have disappeared up the road. Varbanov and Shopov, a JRS vertical grip top 2 ahead of Chris Vasiliov. Then it's Thomas Marks Burgess, you see there in 4th place. 2nd in this queue, Koenig and Connor Brown in 5th and 6th places. Vladislav Shopov and Daniel Markov 7th and 8th. Ventislav Rachinov in 9th place, and Mikhail Velikov in 10th position. Here is your AM class leader, Krastin Stanchev, once again leading an off-track racing top 2. He and Milen Milchev leading the AM class then strongly in the BMW M4 GT3s. And they have Alexander Nikolov in another of the BMWs as their closest pursuee in the AM class at the moment. So barely 6 minutes into the 40-minute enduro, and already there has been a lot going on in this race. There have been several retirements and a lot of damage to various cars out there on the track. It's a shame to see, but that does often happen here at the Cathedral of Speed, known as the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. Viktor Varbanov leading, Boyko Shopov. Then there's a big gap there to Vasiliov in 3rd place. Philip Koenig already in 5th position, of course, started on the 5th row of the grid after crossing the line 2nd earlier on in the race. Vladislav Shopov, who won the previous encounter, he is a little bit further back. Varbanov, Shopov, Vasiliov, Thomas Marks Burgess, Philip Koenig. 4 Porsches and a Lamborghini. And it's the Lamborghini with the important position. It's a Lamborghini in the lead. First the Ferraris in 6th place. That's Connor Brown. Marks Burgess looking to the outside as they run towards the first chicane. Oh, no, sells the dummy, moves to the inside line. And can he get that done? Oh, not much space between them. Not much space offered from either party. Very, very close running. And they're still side by side as they come out to the Variante Alta. And now onwards through Curva Grande. And it does look as though Marks Burgess is carrying more speed. Will he have the corner by the time they get to Della Roggia? Or will it be Chris Vasiliov still on the inside? Philip Koenig trying to see if he can get involved as well. It's Marks Burgess then that moves up to third position. Burgess onto a podium position then. Of course, he'll now be in the clear air, so we'll see whether more pace can be extracted from that Impulse Racing Porsche, whether maybe he can pursue the JRS vertical grip cars behind. But of course, he's by no means out of the firing line. Vasiliov will potentially try and fire back, and he's got to worry about Philip Koenig and Connor Brown behind as well. Also being joined on to that queue of cars is the third Impulse Racing machine, Vladislav Shopov, up into P7. Down the back straight we go once again. We've had a change for the AM lead. Milen Milchev is now your AM class leader. Stanchev has lost out there a couple of positions. I think maybe making a small error or losing out to Serafimov, the pro interloper, at the front of AM as well. Philip Koenig in the slipstream of Vasiliov at the moment then. Getting closer, closer and closer still as the three of them almost combine together. The effect of the slipstream. Koenig with the inside line here on Vasiliov. He's got it done very nicely there. Carries the speed through the second corner just well enough to get ahead, all the way ahead of the 14 car. And that battle, that side-by-side moment between the two of them has given Burgess a little bit of much sought-after breathing room. Ivo Serafimov was the driver who we saw lose his splitter and front assembly at the Della Roggia chicane on the first lap of the race. Stanchev and Nikolov side by side behind. That is for third place in the AM class. In fact, sorry, no, that's for second place in the AM class. The two BMWs side by side. And Alexander Nikolov Jr., I think, has just gotten through into second in AM. Yes, he has. Martin Sampson behind in the Automech Psycho Radios Ferrari, having a good run, well within the top 20 at the moment, has stayed out of trouble so far. Two BMWs side by side for second in AM then. They've switched again. Krastin Stanchev has gotten back through. Milen Milchev, of course, was running in tandem with his off-track racing teammate before. Stanchev lost the lead in AM and then lost a few seconds along the way. I don't know quite what happened there, but Stanchev has clearly had an issue at some point over the last couple of laps. Nonetheless, here is Vladislav Shopov just behind Connor Brown, who's dropped behind, or he's not dropped behind actually, but he's lost some time, as has Vasiliov ahead of him. Here comes Shopov then, with a nose ahead of Brown. He's got a slipstream here from Shopov as they run down towards the first corner once again. And of course, the Impulse Racing cars are going to play nice with each other, one would think. And Connor Brown has allowed Vladislav Shopov through there into sixth position. Shopov now welded to the rear of the Porsche. And in fact, look at Connor Brown. He's losing time there. Connor seems to be dropping back. The inside line goes the Porsche of Shopov. Through into fifth place, manages to get it stopped as well. I thought he was going to go straight on there very, very late in the braking zone, but manages to move up to fifth place. I don't know why Connor Brown has dropped down as far as ninth place, but it looked like he was at only partial throttle going through the Curva Grande last time by. Has fallen behind Rachinov and Markov. You see him there in the Ferrari at the back of shot. At the front of the order, just half a second apart, the two JRS vertical grip cars, Varbanov and Shopov, are your leaders. Then it's Thomas Marks Burgess looking to try and lead the charge towards the rear of those cars. He's only going a few hundredths of a second a lap faster, though. Koenig is there in fourth place, as you can see. As we go back to Georgi Atanasov, Atanasov just within the top 20 in 19th overall, just pursuing Vladimir Mavrodiev. So Mavrodiev in another of the off-track racing BMWs. He now sits third in AM. It's a negative Delta Academy BMW of Nikolov that sits second in AM now, with Milan Milchev leading the way in that class. And look at Koenig, he gets through into third place. Philip Koenig making up positions there. He gets past Thomas Marks Burgess then, so he will now lead the charge to try and pursue the JRS vertical grip racing entries. They're running in tandem, 1-2 at the front of the order. They might be opposing manufacturers, Lamborghini and Porsche. But clearly, obviously, racing for the same team. They will be looking out for each other to an extent. I just wonder if the plan is to try and build that lead and then fight it out in the final couple of laps of the race to see who crosses the line first among them. We saw the JRS vertical grip cars dropping at the end of the sprint race, seemingly to try and get a good position for the start of race 2. That didn't work out for Georgi Ratchev. It has worked out for his 2 vertical grip teammates. Georgi Ratchanov running in 8th place there, as you see. Or sorry, Ventislav Ratchanov running in 8th place there. Just tucked up behind the rear wing of Daniel Markov at the moment. Milen Milchev, your AM class leader, now running 14th overall. Oh, and one of the other BMs going straight on there. Mavrodiev goes past. That was, I think, who was that went off there? I think that might have been Krastin Stanchev again having a moment. Yes, it was. Vladimir Mavrodiev then watching his teammate go straight on at the Variante Ascari. We are 15 minutes into this 40-minute race then. I don't think it'll be too far past half distance that we start to see pit stops. I can't imagine the fuel will last much longer than that, given we were getting to about minute 26, minute 27 or so at Portimao, which of course is a lot less full throttle than Monza. But we'll see when they make the stop. Vladislav Shopov in the tow. The 2 Impulse Racing Porsches just behind Koenig, who's being held up there through the chicane by the Audi, the only Audi in the field. Going a lap down already. Radian Ivanov has clearly had some dramas out there on the circuit. One of many who has already made a visit, I think, to the pit lane. Koenig currently on the bottom step of that podium then in 3rd position. Of course, Thomas Marks Burgess was the driver he overtook a couple of laps ago to move up into 3rd place. Now is Burgess thinking just follow him, try and see if we can get closer to the leaders, or is he thinking that he wants his position back? Well, certainly the pace between the 3rd place pack and the top 2 is pretty much equidistant. They're all in the mid 48s. No one's really breaking the boundaries when it comes to lap time. The fastest lap of the race is a 1 minute 47.736. That belongs to Vladislav Shopov, but he's not setting that kind of pace at the moment. Rostislav Kochev following in the wheel tracks of Alexander Nikolov. This is the battle for 20th position. Of course, Nikolov, who we saw have a moment in the 104 Ferrari in the first race at the Variante della Roggia. No such issues so far for the Jekov Rally team entry. Again, opposing manufacturers, but the same team. Chekhov Rally Team outfit. One, two, three, four, five, six Porsches in a row there from third place down to 8th position. Of course, the car ahead of Philip Koenig is also a Porsche for Boyko Shopov. There's only one Lamborghini in the top 20 right now, but it's in the most important position in the top 20. Varbanov leading the race in the Huracan GT3. The Porsche's the dominant car at the front end of the field, but it is the Lambo that leads it at the moment. Georgi Ratchev would have been right up there on pace as well, of course. But the circumstances have played against him on this day. Varbanov wearing the number 1, last year's champion. Or last season's champion, I should say, as one of the Audis, or the Audi, goes straight on. Martin MJ Sampson having a drop down the order at the moment, was running nicely within the top 20. He's in the pit lane at the moment, so already starting to see a few cars into the pit lane, just on half distance in this race. So that's interesting. Already seeing the pit window. 18 minutes and, well, 19 minutes now into this race. I don't think anyone's going to be two stopping. It'd be better to fuel save than two stop, surely. But we'll see. Varbanov and Shopov may well pit this time then if the pit window is open. We'll see what everybody else does as they come out to Parabolica this time at the front of the order. Rachkinov still following Markov quite closely at the moment. I wonder if we do have an element of fuel saving going on through the pack. We'll see what Varbanov and Shopov do at the front this time. Will they head into pit lane? Will anybody else at the front of the order head into pit lane? Rostislav Kochev seems to be giving a big bump draft to the Ferrari of Nikolov there. Keeping an eye on the timing screen for the front runners. Doesn't look like they're pitting. Well, a few of them are, at least. Markov decides to pit pretty much at the exact middle distance of the race. 20 minutes in, and he has made his pit stop. Of course, this works fine, but you have to be conscious of where you come out. If you come out in a 6-7 car scrum for top 5 position in AM or something like that, you're inevitably going to lose positions. Getting a little bit of a look back here at Radion Ivanov as the car stepped out. Did he manage to hold this slide? Oh, no, not quite. I thought that might have been a replay of a very impressive slide rather than a spin. But it was a spin ultimately, and did well actually to reverse out of the way there rather than return to the firing line. That was quite smoothly done there by the 37. Connor Brown now in 7th position then. In at the 190 Ferrari within the top 10. Again, I don't think it's long before we start to see these pit stops. Oh, Roban Skelton into the side of the BMW. That was Stanchev that he was getting physical with there, fighting it out for the AM positions. Stefanov inherited 19th place overall there then. So Vladislav Stefanov moving up the AM order. Your AM leader is Milen Milchev. Second in AM is Alexander Nikolov Jr. Vladimir Mavrodiev third in AM. And then this is the battle for 4th in AM at the moment that Krastin Stanchev leads ahead of Stefanov. And Robin Skelton, of course, is a pro-class driver, but he's there in amongst it as well. Into the pits has come Vrasilyov and Velkov, so 2 cars from the top 10 in this time. Those that pitted then before the 20-minute mark must have been doing so on the basis of strategy rather than any necessity, because it seems that we're more than able to extend the pit window further if needed. Quite a few cars have pitted this time, though, from the midfield. The AM battle is all in the pit lane at the moment, so I suspect this might be the final lap for Varbanov and the remainder of our front runners here. Will there have been any masterstrokes further back in the field? Have any of our early pit stop runners put themselves in a strong position for the second phase of the race? They exit the pit lane, the AM class leaders, the off-track racing BMWs among them, and it's Lazar Kaczarski that is now your AM class leader. But he is yet to make a pit stop in the Supersport Ferrari, the 103 car. Varbanov, Shopov, Vladislav Shopov will more than likely be going into the pits. Yes, everyone in the top 5 into the pit lane. Rachinov pits. In fact, the only driver in the top 10 that appears to not be pitting is Connor Brown. So the Ferrari of Connor Brown seemingly has a bit more fuel left to give. The turbo V6 2.9 litre engine. There is your leading Porsche cluster then. Who will come out ahead? Or will it be Varbanov in the Lamborghini still in the race lead once everybody exits pit lane? Of course, if they fuel saved here, they could shorten their pit stop, but it will be the Lamborghini that leads them out. Varbanov assumes then what will be the race lead once the pit stop cycle is complete. Behind him, Shopov is now second, only just clear of Philip Koenig and Thomas Marks Burgess. They all exit very close, but they all exit effectively in similar positions to where they were previously. That said, Boyko Shopov no longer the tail gunner for Viktor Varbanov. The JRS vertical grip Porsche no longer with Viktor Varbanov at the front. I wonder if the Impulse Racing and German Sim Racing teams, the 3 cars there in 3rd, 4th and 5th currently, Shopov, Koenig and Burgess, whether they'll maybe combine forces to try and pursue that Lamborghini in the remaining 15 minutes of this race. Connor Brown is your erstwhile race leader then at the front of the pack. Will he pit this time? Here is Connor Brown in the Ferrari 296 GT3 car, rounds the Parabolica once again on lap 14 of the race. Looks like he's heading for pit entry based on that shallow run through the corner. He will come in. I think it would be an almighty stretch to expect him to be at the sharp end of the pack. But will he rejoin with the Porsches? Will he rejoin ahead or behind the Porsches in that big scrum? The 22 Ferrari is stationary then. Here comes the leading pack in the overall battle. It will be Varbanov, I think, that resumes in the lead, and the Ferrari will drop down behind the pursuing Porsches. Rejoins the race then in 5th overall. Interestingly, Markov has lost some time. Boyko Shopov, meanwhile, has come in to serve his pit stop. Of course, Shopov was out of position, having not served a stop. In fact, no, that's a second pit stop for Boyko Shopov. I'm not quite sure why he's in again, whether or not there was some damage or maybe an incident for Boyko Shopov on the previous lap, because certainly suddenly a big gap between Thomas Marks Burgess and the chasing cars before Connor Brown rejoined the race. Boyko Shopov comes back out then in the number 10 car. He rejoins the race in 17th place, having made a curious second pit stop. There's Viktor Varbanov in the first place car then. The Lamborghini, I think, being hunted down slightly by the Porsches behind. The gap is shrinking down 100th by 100th. And I think Shopov and Koenig may well be wise enough to try and work together here. There they are in 2nd and 3rd position, dropping Thomas Marks Burgess at the moment. Marks Burgess is maybe a half dozen car lengths behind Koenig. Koenig and Shopov, two of the highest rated drivers on the grid. And let's see, Koenig brinking down the gap as they run down the main straight, but I don't think he'll make a move into the first corner. I think he's intent on closing in on the leader rather than making a move for second place right now. The gap is shrinking down between first and second places as these two Porsches run in tandem with each other. Last lap times a 1:48.1 for Varbanov in the Lamborghini. Shopov in his Porsche a 1:47.736, and then in the tow, Philip Koenig set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:47.612. So it's clearly working. The gap is going down by a good 2 or 3 tenths per lap. If they keep going at this rate of knots, then they will be on the back of the Lamborghini before the end of this race. Little mistakes like that gravel excursion coming out of De La Roggia, though, will not help. Boyko Shopov rejoining the race just behind Kochev in the number 9, who's been a little bit anonymous, I think, over the course of today's race. Getting a replay here of the 37 Audi. Ooh, that was nearly a bad rejoin. Hesitated out of it. And then decided to straight line the chicane. Car looking more than second hand. And that's only good for scrap at this point. We had another car going straight on a few positions further back, and there's the number 20 car drifting out wide. Georgi Atanesov just moving up to 13th place there, going past the AM class leader Milen Milchev. Milchev allowing him through. I think maybe thinking, I want to tow, because only a couple of seconds behind is Alexander Nikolov Jr., the AM class leader. Course, AM class second place car. Milchev is the AM leader. And Tanisov, of course, being a pro driver, not a factor in that AM battle. Look at how the gap has shrunk down. It was 1.3 seconds basically across the line just over a lap ago. It's now down under 3/4 of a second between Varbanov and Shopov, so the lap times are still a lot lower for the chasing pack right now. Two Porsches in the 47s. Your race leader, Varbanov, on a 48.3 last time by. Give it another lap, and I think Varbanov will be in a 3-car scrap with Shopov and Koenig for the race win. And of course, there will be no allegiances once these three take the gloves off. JRS Vertical Grip versus Impulse Racing versus German Sim Racing. We're into the final 10 minutes of the race, and we're primed and ready for a 3-car shootout for the win. And if it does get a bit scrappy out there, maybe the likes of Thomas Marks Burgess will join in as well. Marks Burgess is only 3 seconds behind. Connor Brown some 7 seconds back in 5th place. He might not be a factor, but look at how close the top 3 are. We're on lap 17 of the race, and things have converged at the front of the pack. The continued strife of Radian Ivanov continues. He once again elects to straight line the chicane. It's definitely a strategy rather than a mistake. I don't quite grasp it. We also get Martin MJ Sampson here, potentially going straight on. That doesn't look like he's making the corner. I'm sure he didn't. And we have a move for the lead. Vladislav Shopov with the inside line. Varbanov, though, holding him off in the big Lamborghini, and does indeed just about stay in the lead of the race. But Shopov had the inside line there, got a good run out of Parabolica, and it's Varbanov who just about holds on to it. The outside of turn 1 became the inside for turn 2, and that was his saving grace at the Variante Alta. But the two Porsches mean business, Shopov and Koenig. And again, every time they go side by side through a corner, every time they're scrapping, this brings Thomas Marks Burgess a little bit closer to a potential podium. But Koenig, out of nowhere, has dropped down there. Koenig has suddenly lost 2 seconds. I wonder if he's trying to work with Burgess, maybe, as Shopov, out of the Lesmos, goes through. Shopov is our race leader. That looked very easy. Got a great run out of the Lesmos compared to Varbanov. Very interesting happenings going on here. I don't fully understand why Koenig decided to drop back like that. Vladislav Shopov then is your new leader ahead of Viktor Varbanov in a move that looked fairly simple. Shopov, who started the race in 10th position as the winner of race 1, is now the leader in race number 2. We have less than 7 minutes of racing left to go then. Philip Koenig, as you can see there, still back there with Burgess, so he's continued on once he dropped back to Burgess. I don't fully understand the merits of dropping back in that fashion. It didn't look like a mistake. I may have missed a mistake at the Variante della Roggia on the previous lap from Koenig, but I didn't notice it. Ooh, Markov there going to the inside and losing out there. Vasilyov and Markov too close for comfort through the Variante Alta. And that moves Velikov up into 8th position. Michal Velikov then up into P8 in the first of the Red Zone Racing Mercedes entries. Let's get another look at that. Markov just had a look to the inside. Vasilyov took the corner in standard fashion. I think there was maybe just an iota of contact between them, but I'm not sure if there was. Regardless, Markov ended up in a spin there, I think trying to avoid the side of his fellow Porsche. And the net result is he's ended up behind the Mercedes of Velikov as they now fight for 8th position. Big Mercedes AMG GT3 then, 6.2 litre front engine V8, the only front engine car in the top 10. Runs through the Variante Ascari now with Markov very much registered as his company. Clock ticks into the final 5 minutes of this race then. Shopov and Varbanov split by 0.4 of a second at the front of the field. Koenig and Burgess are 3rd and 4th place. And since dropping back, Koenig is not gaining on the 2 ahead of him. There is Thomas Marks Burgess that we ride on board with at the moment. So Philip Koenig just ahead. This is now a fight for 3rd position. Will Thomas Marks Burgess get there? Top 4 within 4 seconds at the front of the field. Connor Brown there in 5th place as well in the first of the Ferraris. Looks like he's going to be too far away to challenge for an overall podium here in the AM class. It is Milen Milchev that leads the way for off-track racing. He's just ahead of Negative Delta Academy's Alexander Nikolov Jr. Then rounding out the top 3 in the AM class is Vladimir Mavrodiev in the 3rd of the BMWs in the AM top 3. The 2nd of the off-track racing cars, of course, Vladimir Mavrodiev. He's just ahead of Krastin Stanchev. This is Alexander Nikolov in 21st place. He's just behind the Belgian Roy Verveek. There is Stanchev just ahead of Verveek as well. So Stanchev here trying to hold on to 19th overall as the Belgian racer pursues him. Nikolov following as well. And then in 22nd place is Ooms, another of the Belgian racers, of course, another of the Automech Psycho Radio's entries. And Velikov has had a moment. Velikov trying to rejoin the track there. He's had a moment at Variante Ascari. What happened to Michal Velikov? Well, he can't find any traction now. Finally gets the car pointed in the right direction. Oh, but ends up right in front of one of the Porsches there. That was Kochev who had to take evasive action. And he rejoins the race all the way down in 17th. Throws away a top 10 there. Or was it thrown away for him? We didn't see the initial reason that he ended up in a spin. Side by side, Bozidar Andreev, who I don't think has been in the top 10 at any point today, rather surprisingly, going side by side with Georgi Atanesov here for 11th position. It is the 20 car that leads this 3-car queue then. Georgi Atanesov in 11th place. Oh, and Boyko Shopov getting into it there with Andreev. Of course, Shopov, who's made a pair of pit stops in this race, getting tagged. And Bozidar Andreev, the taggee in that one, does get through into 12th position. Sure, that might get looked at in the postscript. We have less than 2 minutes of racing left to go, meanwhile. I think that the final lap of the race will start this time by. This should be the penultimate lap for your race leaders. There's Milen Milchev, the AM class leader, starting to get involved with these Porsches as well with the overall battle. Of course, Milchev may be wise to not try and get involved in this because the AM class second place car is only a couple of seconds back. You see there the second of the BMWs in shot. That is Nikolov Jr., second in AM right now. Milen Milchev just wants to get that AM win. Mihail Velikov, his race is going from bad to worse. 22nd now, unfortunately, in his wounded Mercedes. That car was on for a top 10 finish, is now outside of the top 20 as Roy Vivek closes in on Stanchev. And yeah, Velikov, I think, has just kind of checked out, I think, more than anything. But you can see the suspension on that car is not right either. You can see the toe in there on the front axle. That car has a lot of suspension damage. Whether there was a secondary incident or not, I'm not sure. Final 30 seconds on the clock then. Vladislav Shopov, your race leader, is 3 seconds clear at the front of the order. So Viktor Varbanov in the JRS vertical grip Lamborghini has dropped back from the Porsche from Impulse Racing now. 3 seconds is the gap. That should be home free. Oh, Vivek there getting into it with Milchev. No, sorry, not Milchev. Stanchev once again on the fringes of the top 20. Vivek has moved up to 18th position then. It's been a solid race from the Belgian. And Joris Ooms up into the top 20 now. Clock has ticked over 40 minutes then. Our race leaders will be coming through the final sector for the final time as Alexander Nikolov makes the move for 19th position. I think that's Bastangiev getting involved as well, but of course he is a few laps further down. And we've had the race leader across the line. Vladislav Shopov has taken the race win. Shopov, your winner then in the third round endurance race, the feature race of the SimGear Premier League GT3s. Shopov wins, Varbanov second, Koenig in third place ahead of Burgess, Brown and Rachinov, your top half dozen in that race. Shopov just disappeared up the road ultimately once he was in the lead, and Koenig rounded out the podium there, seemed happy enough to just take third place in that race rather than work his way any further up. Joris Ooms still side by side while that's going on. Milen Milchev has just crossed the line to win in the AM class as well. Joris Ooms to the inside for 19th position. Skelton is behind this scrap. The two Porsches side by side. In fact, sorry, that's Skelton trying to drag past, and he will drag past to take 21st place. Skelton recovering after starting from the rear of the order. Stefanov just ahead of them in the Mercedes, rounding out the overall top 20. But Milen Milchev, all importantly, winning in the AM class, 14th overall, just ahead of Nikolov and Mavrodiev. Vladislav Shopov, your race winner then, 3.2 seconds clear of the big Lamborghini. There is Lazar Kaczarski, who was the AM class leader coming into this weekend. With this result, I'm not so sure that he'll be the AM leader anymore. I think it could well be Milen Milchev that ends up in the AM class lead on the provisional results anyway. As always, I'm sure that the investigations will be numerous post-race. We get a look back here then at Vladislav Shopov crossing the line. Well clear at the front of the order. He had time to celebrate and showboat and drive beneath the podium to cross the line and win here at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. A great result for Shopov and Impulse Racing in the Simgear GT3 Premier League. Varbanov second, Koenig in third place. Three teams on the podium then. A very varied podium in that sense. Shopov ahead of Varbanov then, Koenig, Burgess and Brown, your top five in that race. Rachinov in sixth ahead of Vasiliov. Daniel Markov recovering to 8th place after his late moment. Anton Stratiev in 9th. Svetanov rounding out the overall top 10 ahead of Georgi Atanasov. Boyko Shopov in 12th. Bozidar Andreev in 13th place. Milan Milchev, the first of the AM drivers, in 14th position ahead of Kochev, Nikolov, Mavrodiev and Roy Vivek. Rounding out the top 20, Alexander Nikolov in 19th place. Vladislav Stefanov in 20th position. Roban Skelton in 21st place ahead of Yoris Ums. Krastin Stanchev in 23rd. Serafimov in 24th place. Lazar Kaczarski in 25th ahead of Michal Velikov. Ivalo Dimitrov in 27th place ahead of Dimitar Palazov in 28th. Martin MJ Sampson was running within the top 10 at one point. Within the top 20 at one point in the race. Started from 17th, but ultimately down in 29th by the end of the race ahead of Radlen Ivanov. Julian Janovsky in 31st place. Bastangiev, Vodenicherov, Kirchev, Isov, Dimitrov, Ivanov, Yankov and Rachev are 39 finishers. All of those drivers towards the back of the field, of course, with numerous issues during that race. Drama galore, collisions and bent virtual carbon fibre. The stories then of the racing weekend at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. Not too surprised to see that, of course. The circuit always is a place of high drama in the Simgear GT3 Premier League, and indeed any series that dares to tread on this hallowed turf with 40 cars on the entry list. But all said and done, it was a fairly impressive run from all of our drivers to stay somewhat clean out there at what is a very tricky little circuit. And after that performance, I think Vladislav Shopov will be feeling very, very confident. Shopov, who was the championship leader, of course, coming in, just 6 points clear of Georgi Rachev. Rachev registering effectively a non-finish in this feature race, whereas Shopov won both races here today at Monza. Vladislav Shopov will have taken a big step forward in the Simgear GT3 Premier League with this result. So then, I think in the next few moments, we'll start to see some of our drivers join in the commentary box. We'll wait and see when they arrive. We have Vladimir Mavrodiev in already. So Mavrodiev is with us. How are you doing, Vladimir? Third in the AM class there, I would say. Another successful day for off-track racing BMW. That looked fairly good out there for you guys.
Yes, indeed. One range, not so bad. We were hoping for 1, 2, or maybe 1, 2, 3. It almost got it again. In the last lap.
Sounds like your connection might be a little bit twitchy at the moment, mate. But
sorry about that.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Obviously, this BMW, it seems to be a popular choice in AM. All of the front runners in AM seem to end up in the BMWs. Why do you think it is that we don't see so many in the Pro class? Why is the BMW an AM favourite, but a non-presence in the Pros?
I don't know actually. I think it's at our level doesn't really matter the car. I mean, if there's a good pro with the BMW in the pro class, he would be, I guess, somewhere in the front. I mean, it's more to the driver than to the car,
Of course, yeah.
in my opinion.
It's interesting that so many of them, of course, are running the Porsche. Of course,
Yeah.
a little bit of a break now. We've got 2 weeks before the next race. What do you think we're going to expect next time out? Of course, again, different circuit entirely, heading to Sebring. Very, very bumpy circuit, very tricky track. I think it's going to be a tough day at Sebring, isn't it, for everybody?
Yes, it's gonna be fun and a tough race. Challenging in a lot of ways. I guess will be a pretty good race. I'm hoping for a good race.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a good one as well. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Vladimir
Sure.
Mavrodiev. We have another of our Vladdies with us, Vladislav Shopov. We'll come to you in a minute, Vladislav, because we do also have Philip Koenig, who finished 3rd position. So I think we'll do that in ascending order. Philip, I'm curious. Towards the end of the race there, it looked like you kind of dropped 2 seconds. I didn't see a mistake. I thought I just saw you lifting off. What was going on there towards the end?
Hello, Adam, and good evening. Yeah, I had a slowdown because I was too close to 40, and in the second chicane, I had a slowdown because I cut it too much in the first corner. And yeah, you just can't see enough of the corners, so that's what happened. But yeah, it was a really, really nice race.
And that's the thing, isn't it? You've got to run those fine margins to be quick. You've got to risk one, but then when you have an obstruction like a car right ahead of you, that can come back to bite. So that explains what happened there for you. But I think in general, Vladislav Shopov notwithstanding, of course, with his 2 victories, I think of the top runners in the championship, you had one of the better days overall. We're just seeing on the stream at the moment, you avoiding the number 8 car wildly fishtailing at one point, coming through Curva Grande. It looked like a strong day for you overall.
Was a great one. I didn't believe that I was going to get through turn 1 in the second race, so I was just taking it very slow. I think the race was pretty much not even won, but like the race was valid as soon as we got out of turn 1. So yeah, it was a great race. Thank you to all the guys in Impulse. Thank you to Philip. We coordinated like pit strategies, fuel. It was an absolute sweet race.
And so what happened, Vladislav Shopov, in the first race? Why did yourself and Georgie drop back? Was that just looking to be out of the midfield for the start of race 2?
It wasn't me actually. I think Georgie
Oh,
he
sorry,
went out
yes,
of fuel.
I'm getting my Vladdies and Victors mixed up. I apologize.
No, I think you're gonna have to ask Victor. I think they ran out of
Yes.
fuel because we were actually looking at that too. Because there's
Yeah.
2 options. They could have run out of fuel, or they just wanted to be in one of the first grade spots in the second race.
No,
Victor,
So
you're in here.
yeah, we underfueled the cars. Yeah, it was 1 lap less fuel, and we didn't want to go into the pit, and we risked it going straight everywhere. And I barely crossed the line, actually.
Yes, a few cars came to a halt immediately after the finish line in that race, so that would explain that. Victor, though, it was a good race for you nonetheless. 2nd place eventually, but you lost your rear gunner in the second half of the race, and you got closed in pretty quickly by these Porsches. You tried to defend, but it looked like Shopov had an extra gear today.
Yeah, I was unbelievably slow today. I couldn't control the car anywhere. I barely survived. I had 1 more incident point, and I was going to get a penalty as well.
Oh, and I understand you were karting this weekend as well.
I was actually only observing. I didn't drive this weekend.
Okay, but
I came from the race like hour before this one, and I haven't practiced. I did 1 wet session in the officials this week, and like 1 hour practice for this one on the dry. So it's decent for me. I'm quite happy that I survived.
Yeah, I think it was a good weekend for you all told. And of course, even though you maybe dropped some points in race 1 with the underfueling, you were third place coming into this weekend. I think Georgi Rachev may have dropped back behind yourself and Philip Koenig if the results stand as they are after the second race and his drama in that one. The Lamborghini, then, as a car to drive, is it on a knife edge? It does look like it can bite you sometimes if you get it a little bit wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Like, we didn't have time to do the setup, and on the second race, the track was a bit hotter, and the car was really understeery. Like, the front just wasn't there.
Okay, interesting. Understeery as opposed to oversteery then. Usually the mid-engine cars lead with their rear. Final word from the pros we will, of course, give to Vladislav Shopov. You came in, Vladislav, if you are still there. I know you're muted at the moment. There you are. You came in as the championship leader. You look to be in a strong position. Generally, you look like you're in sync with your car. How does Sebring suit you?
Well, I have to drive it before I say how it suits me, but well, it's very bumpy, obviously. Well, I don't know. I'm hoping I'm gonna get at least a podium in there in one of the races. It's not my favorite track, but Monza wasn't my favorite track now, but I think it's gonna be from now on. But yeah, well, looking forward to it. I'm hoping I'm gonna stay out of trouble. Pretty much the championship is now. I can aim for a high spot in the championship if I just survive. So that's what I'm going to be aiming to do.
Yeah, survival is definitely going to be the name of the game. Vladislav, Victor, Philip Koenig, thank you all for joining me here in the commentary box for this part of the press conference. Of course, it's 2 weeks, so have a good, I guess, holiday from the SimGear GT3 Premier League, and best of luck next time out in Sebring.
Thank you, Adam. Have a good one.
Goodbye.